We are here today with Chuck Redpath, who is seeking re-election to the Ward 1 seat on Springfield City Council in the April 2nd election. We appreciate you joining us and would ask you to start by offering an opening statement as to why you are seeking another term.
Well, I've served on the City Council for quite a few years. I had a break in service for a while, but I was approached by my neighbors 4 years ago to come and run for alderman. Been honest to my wife, who actually said, "You're going to do what?" So, but the long story short is that I enjoy public service. I've been in public service my whole life, through the military, through my police career, and then as an alderman for quite a few years. I have a lot to contribute to the city of Springfield. I've been able to take a leadership role on the city council and get some things done. I have a good knack for communication and you know, building coalitions in order to get votes on the city council that we can use to make things better. So I feel good about my service for the last 4 years, and I think that I still have a lot to contribute, and that's why I'm running again.
Could you just briefly detail some of the things you're most proud of from your most recent term?
Sure. You know, my number one asset is my constituent service. I made it clear in my first term that I wanted to make sure that I stayed in communication with my constituents and held ward meetings and communicated with them, and I was able to do that through a lot of different ways. We've held ward meetings every year in conjunction with the administration, which gave the constituents and the residents of Ward 1 a voice on the things that they had concerns with. I have a Facebook page. I do use direct mail. When we have, I've direct mailed at my expense to my constituents on questions that were maybe controversial. I'm always exposed and available by phone, by text, and by email. And like I said, I hold neighborhood meetings with constituents as requested. I attend all the homeowners association meetings invited to, which was quite a few. I usually attend at least one a month, maybe two a month for the last 3.5 years. I'm a member of the Lake Council. My ward, as you know, it borders Lake Springfield, so I have to be involved with all the activities around City Water, Light, and Power and the lake. So been very open and feel good about my results. I got a lot of support, and I feel comfortable that I'm doing a good job.
What would you say are the most challenging parts about being an alderman?
Well, you can't please everybody, and you know, there's issues that come up that are controversial, and you have to sometimes make a tough stand. And obviously, although we have interaction on the city council, is not bad. It's not a partisan situation, because we Democrats, Republicans, Independents, we all seem to be working together. But some of the times you run into controversial issues, and you just have to make some tough decisions. You can't please everybody. You try. You do your best to please as many people as you possibly can with the things that you can get done.
Looking at Ward 1, what would you say are some of the pressing issues that need to be addressed?
Well, it's always an ongoing battle for lake services around my ward. I have a unique situation, because when I was the alderman in Ward 4, which is on the north end of Springfield, didn't encompass the lake, but now it encompasses the lake, and I have to use lake services in addition to using public works to try to get my infrastructure repaired. We don't have a big sewer problem out there, but we're in the process of making the residents on the lake transfer over to a sewer system other than being on septics. The roads some are plowed by and maintained by Lake Services, and now the mayor's put together a proposal to bring that underneath Public Works. So infrastructure may be the #1 issue that I have problems with. Crime we have not a bad problem with crime. You get some minor things go on around the lake with maybe some thefts and stuff, but nothing major. We have a good response by our fire service, and economic development is on the outskirts of my ward, which runs down Stevenson and Dirksen all the way down to Toronto Road. So those are issues that we're always constantly trying to lure new businesses to come to that area, and use my skills and my communication with other with contractors, developers, and that kind of thing to try to get them to come build out in that area. You know, the Dirksen-Stevenson area used to be one of the most vibrant areas, and it's fallen behind. Although that borders my ward, it's in Ward 2 with Alderman Turner.
So what's your kind of initial reaction to the mayor's suggestion of incorporating lake services into public works?
Well, it's been a good situation so far, because the lake services people are working in conjunction with public works. So we're not abolishing lake services. What we're doing is having the public works people take over the main parts of the lake roads, which has always been under-maintained and which needed to be done. And it allows the lake services people to go back and do other things. There's a lot of common areas around Lake Springfield, the shore, the parks, and that kind of thing. So that'll free those folks up to be able to go around and maintain that stuff. So so far it's been positive, and I feel comfortable it's going to get better as it goes. We have put more money in the budget for the roads out there, so I think that's going to be a good situation for us.
Good.
You brought up economic development. That's certainly something
Sure.
We as an editorial board thinks is a huge issue for the city. There were a couple projects in the last year that, as we as a board argue would have been good for the city, that the council voted down. So we want to ask incumbents and give them a chance to. Readers heard our view. We'd like them to hear your view. The first one would be the architecture firm that wanted to build by the lake, which of course would have been in your ward.
Sure.
So why did you vote the way you did on that one?
Well, mainly we were trying to protect the lake from commercial development, and obviously we want development, but not where it intercedes with the lake itself. The developer, in our opinion, was not. I don't think he was truthful with us when he came to us and told us exactly what he was going to build. We found out later that he was going to subdivide and do things that he didn't say that he was going to do in the initial process.
This is the gentleman with the architecture firm?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And so the infrastructure, putting a commercial development on that property would have been very expensive. There's no resources, water resources or sewer, and the roads are in terrible shape. Fire service was opposed to it, as well as most of the departments in Springfield, basically because it just didn't fit. We offered that developer other places in the area, and we offered them places around the Stevenson Drive, Dirksen Parkway area where we were willing to give them assistance as much as we could. We were opposed to putting it on Lake Springfield. We thought it was a detriment to the lake. The homeowners association was very opposed to it, and I worked with them to try to find an alternative, even a compromise, but there was nothing that we could figure out that would work.
What you said you're not opposed to having things in the lake, but not this particular thing. What would you be open to seeing on the lake?
Well, something more conducive to the lake, something that would go along with the services of the lake. You know, the marina across the bay there was a prime example. That used to be where this property is. Mm-hmm. Maybe a boating situation or something to do with boating, but the development that he was proposing had nothing to do with what we were hoping to see out there. Residential's more in line for that area. That is basically a wildlife sanctuary to start with, and then it turned into a marina over the years. But now it's been torn down, and I've been working with the banker to try to find a reasonable compromise for that. There's a couple proposals on the table right now about a senior residential situation that they may want to try to build there, and so we're in talks right now on that. Okay. And it's not me as a legislator, because that's not my job. My job is to do my best to protect the constituents I represent, and to also try to find development. And so that developer, which is the bank, they tore down the old building and cleaned it all up, and
it's a lot better.
It looks great, and but we're willing to listen to it. Okay. Reasonable, hopefully residential type of situation.
I think the other economic development issue the board took issue with the council with would be the Ferguson Booth Building project.
Right.
How did you vote on that, and what made you do that?
Well, I voted against it because the developer had a track record of failures on that thing. He was in arrears to not just his people that provided his materials and stuff, but also with the people that worked for him. He had not paid into he had benefits that he was due to the workers that went there that never got paid. He was in arrears on how he was paying for the project and that kind of thing. And he kept coming back, and we just told him, hey, enough is enough. I can tell you the consensus of the city council is that if somebody comes with a reasonable proposal, we're willing to put whatever we have to into that. But this came down to the developer who failed enough, and you can only give people so much, and then after a while it just gets to be too much.
Okay.
And there had really never been any TIF funds that had been given to him.
Right.
That's correct.
Right.
Broadly on economic development, can you remind us where you stood on the question of the city providing funding for the Land of Lincoln Economic Development Corporation, and how do you feel like it's doing so far?
Well, I did support that. Our economic development departments for the city had not done very well over the years, and it's frankly was almost stagnant. It wasn't moving forward. The county came up with a reasonable proposal to bring business leaders into a group to hash out ideas, and these weren't people they just put on a board. These are people who put financial investment into being part of that board, and had a financial interest. And these are the best and the brightest in Springfield. You're talking about Buns and the Ed Curtises and that type of people who really have put development on the top of their list. So we felt that was a good chance for us to see what we could do. They brought in Eric Berglund, who is a professional from Florida, who I've met with a couple times now, to give some ideas on how we can move things along and change. And I think it's a good idea. And I can tell you that since Val Yeasel's taken over at the city, things have changed in the city side of the economic development. She's done a pretty good job. I met with her a couple times, talked to her about economic development around the lake and around on Stevenson and Dirksen area, and she's working hand in hand with Eric Berglund. And I think that they're going to do okay. Now, you say, how are they doing? Well, we're giving them a little time to get off the ground. And I can tell you that I think Alderman Donlin said it. Okay, you've had a year now, where are you? And, they're still trying to get their feet on the ground. And frankly, the last time Alderman Turner and I met with him about a month ago, because we were trying to work on some economic development. He's been meeting with businesses and that type of thing, and finding out that where the hurdles are and why businesses are not coming here, why businesses are leaving here, and he's got a good grip on it. And obviously part of it is our utility. Our commercial rates are a little high, and I'm sure you're going to ask me questions about CWLP. So. But it's not completely up and running yet. But it's off and run. It's off to a good start, and we're looking forward to seeing some ideas with this year, because he's had enough time, and I think it's time for us to come back and tell us, hey, this is where we're at.
Do you believe, or will you vote with the budget if it has another $250,000 for another year for the EDC? Would you?
This year I will.
This year, okay.
This year I will,
Okay.
and because I want to make sure we give them the best chance we can to try to succeed, and but we got to see some results, and we can't just hand out money just because for anything. We got to have some results, and we got to see that there is a method to the madness, if you will, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Past couple of years has definitely been tough budget for situations for the city and for the city council, and council did approve some tax increases, sales tax, hotel, motel, telecom, you're aware of them. Please explain why you voted the way you did on those increases.
I voted no for all those taxes because I still felt that there was fat in the budget and that we could have cut. We identified several areas. In fact, the first couple years, we as a group on the city council went through the budget and found several $1 million worth of areas where we could cut. Didn't think that we needed it. That's why I voted the way I did. It's not the fact that I'm opposed to taxes. If we get to the point where we have to do it, I will consider that. But until we cut stuff that we really don't need, fat, basically, I think we got to try to live within our means. And that's one of my proposals that I put on my flyer, that I'm going to do my best to stay within our means, but I'm not going to say that I won't vote for a tax, because if it comes down to it, and there's going to be a situation in the next couple of years that we may have to look at raising a tax to take care of certain things like pension.
Mm-hmm. Which is like our next question, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
So let me ask though, can you recall what fat might have been identified that wasn't addressed in the budget?
Not right off the top of my head, other than excessive personnel maybe, or excessive spending, that kind of thing, may have been part of why we did that. I know that they were trying to purchase things that we didn't really need at the time, and when we went through, I know Alderman Donlin and Hanauer and I sat down and went through the budget line by line, and that year we cut like $11 million out of the proposed budget. So we knew that there was fat, and they obviously went along with it because we passed the budget. So that was just some areas, and it's a lot different in the utility when we go through the utilities budget, because there's so many different areas that goes. It goes several different directions. So we were able to cut not just out of the corporate budget, but the utility too. And I'm sorry I don't have real specifics in front of me.
You brought up pensions, and that is certainly takes up a larger share of the city's budget every year, and certainly Springfield's not alone in having this problem. It's a problem throughout the state, and you're limited a little bit by the legislature what you can and can't do to address it. But what type of pension reforms would you like to see? Well,
we did take on a little bit of responsibility by adding payments to the pension in the last 3 years. I know that 2 years in a row, I believe we went $1 million or $1.5 million more than we had been contributing. Another thing is that we identified that we were allowing people to go out with promotions and with spikes. And the spikes being, they were on top of their pensions, they were getting like a 5% spike. We eliminated that immediately the first year. And we also, when people get close to retirement, we need to know when they're going to retire, so you don't walk out the door. And I can tell you an example. Mayor Langfelder gave up, and listen, I'm not opposed to Mayor Langfelder. I'm not for, I'm not in the middle of the mayor's race, but Mayor Langfelder gave raises to the chief of the fire department and his command staff, and that was an incentive to try to keep them to stay. And he really believed that if he gave them this raise, that they were going to stay for a couple more, 2 or 3 years. And as soon as he gave them the pension, as soon as he gave them the bonus, the increase, they walked out the door, which was detrimental to us, because then we had to change over not only the chief's office but the command staff, which was really tough. And to be honest with you, Chief Rainey is doing an excellent job. He came in from a captain. He had a lot of experience in the union, so I really feel confident that he's going to make some serious changes and streamline things over there for us.
You mentioned CWLP earlier. What are your top issues you see with it and priorities that you think the city should be doing?
Well, I am the chairman of the Public Utilities Committee, and we put that committee together to better inform the aldermen, because a lot of new aldermen on there. I know that other community groups would like to have it as a forum, but it really wasn't put together for that. It was put together so the aldermen could be educated. We are in the process of looking at the outdated utility, and we're talking about units 31, 32, and possibly 33. We have the IRP coming, which is an integrated resource plan. That's going to be coming in front of the city council hopefully next month. It probably won't get here until April, but that resource plan is most likely going to say that we need to retire those older units. And we get that. We're hoping that they do that with a phase-out process, maybe a couple years to get us so we get through the process. But those are going to have to probably go. 31 and 32 at least. I'm opposed to shutting down 33, and the only reason I say that is because if we go down to one plant with Dahlman 4, we may be subjected to have to go to the grid to buy power after if we went down in an outage. And that happens. Last couple of years, we've had outages 2 or 3 times, which were very detrimental, and it cost us a lot of money. But if we have a backup unit, at least we can save ourselves without having to be at the mercy of the internet. I mean, of the grid. We're also going to be facing problems with the ash ponds. The ash ponds is probably a $30 million problem, and I think that we're going to have to address that sooner than later. We've been working on keeping a contingency fund so we can probably pay for that, not completely, but at least we're going to have a good start on the ash ponds. The lake, in addition to the utility itself, they're responsible for the lake, and our water resource that's a good source, and obviously we have to maintain that. We put together we voted to bring Lake 2 in, and we voted on Lake 2 in 1987 when I started on the city council. So I can tell you it's been a contingent issue for a lot of years, but that was probably the best option we had for a secondary resource. And other than that, we'd have to go either to the Illinois River with a pipeline, and they were talking about the Clear Lake ponds out on the east side of town, which is really not a good option because that's really the same water that Chatham's using, and I don't think that it's something we want to get into. If we had to go to the Illinois River, I guess we could, but the best option that we have right now is Lake 2. So those are probably the main issues right now for the utility. I can tell you that over the last 3 years, we did renegotiated our contracts on our bonds for the utility. We also renegotiated the coal contract where we saved about $60 million on the coal. We went from $56 a ton down to about $36 a ton. So that in itself stabilized the rates for the residential customers. Now, I said earlier that one of the things that we have a problem with is commercial rates, and we do. They're very high, and we're hoping that when the resource plan comes out, it gives us some idea on how we can reduce those. A lot of the costs for the commercial rates are being tied to our debt, our bond debts, and so there's a lot of administrative costs and and that kind of thing tied up into those commercial rates, which we got to get away from. We probably could do better if we did go out on the grid for the commercial rates, but then it wouldn't keep our utilities stable. I think that that's going to be the big challenge for us for the utility in the next couple of years is how we're going to drop those commercial rates.
A topic that you guys have talked about quite a bit around the horseshoe the last year has been tourism.
Yes.
Do you think the city is leveraging its attractions like Lincoln and the other things we have here in the best manner it could?
No. I think that we have. We've not done enough. Tourism is our #1 industry for Springfield. We need to spend whatever we have to do to bring back the old conventions that we used to have. I remember when I was a young man, you come downtown, every hotel was filled. The restaurants were full of people because of the tourism that we have, but somehow that's slipped away from us, and I don't think we've done enough. And I've been a very strong advocate about spending the money. They got a good fund over there with the hotel motel fund and that kind of stuff to draw conventions and that type of thing to us. I think that we hired the best guy we could hire with Scott Dahl. Excuse me. Scott Dahl was a great hire for us. He's been very aggressive, and he's put together some good plans, and he's not afraid to take on the industry. He understands that we got to try to draw these conventions back from Peoria and Champaign and Decatur and Bloomington and that kind of stuff. And so he's being really aggressive. He's been in the industry for a long time. I think he's going to be a good asset to us.
Okay. Another topic for the last year or two has been the Y Block. What would you like to see there?
Well, I'm very glad to see that 2 universities are going to fight over it. To be honest with you, I work closely with Chancellor Cook at UIS. Talk to her all the time about how we can build around the campus out there. But she has a vision to bring the Public Policy Institute downtown to Springfield, which is what she's had on her mind for a long time. So I understand Senator Bernard has put in a resolution to set aside money to try to bring the SIU in for the same thing. So those are probably two of the big things that I wouldn't mind seeing there. I was opposed to bringing a park down there because it's not the intent of us to use TIF money to bring something in where it's going to be non-tax paying, even though the universities will be. I was hoping for more of a mixed use of commercial, residential type of situation in that area. A part of it you can't build on because we had to put the retention ponds in that area, but that's a good addition to the realtors corridor leading to Lincoln's home all the way in front of the mansion and that kind of stuff. But I think that we're going to see something come out of this within this next year. I think there's going to be some proposals that we're going to be able to consider. But I'd love to see the universities. I think it brings a lot downtown, and looking forward to that.
Other hot topic of recent months is, should Capital Township be merged?
Yeah.
And if so, with which entity, the county or the city?
Well, I think that, one of the things I considered was that when it was put on the ballot by the county last fall, 73% of the people in my ward voted for it and said they wanted to consolidate with the county. Now, obviously, there wasn't a message on their city or county, but they said that they wanted to consolidate. So I think that people understand that consolidating government makes sense because it cuts back on costs and that type of thing. But here's where we are. We now have a resolution that passed that says that the citizens want to consolidate with the county. There's a lot of things that the Capital Township does that the county already does, and frankly, the social service side of it, the assessment side of it, the county does that stuff. But the city does the roads and the streets. And so they are in negotiations. I don't know where they are, but they are in negotiations trying to figure that out. And I can see somehow that we consolidate with the county city together. And we do some kind of compromise, and where you take this part, we'll take this part, and that way we can consolidate that government. I don't think it's everything goes to the county or everything goes to the city, and I don't want to see that. I want to see those who it affects be able to take over their portion of it.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Governing Magazine did a recent series of articles about several Illinois towns, including Springfield. Are you familiar with this? Did you read these articles?
I don't believe it.
Okay. It basically argues that Springfield has multiple race-based inequalities.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that? And how do you think the city could go about improving?
Well, it depends on who you ask. I mean, the perception out there is that we have a race problem. I think it's more of a communication problem. Okay. I think that when we started to build the rail consolidation here, where we're moving everything from the 3rd Street tracks to the 10th Street tracks, I think that there was a perception that we were segregating people, and I don't think that's what our intent was. That was one of the reasons we pushed so hard for the underpasses, and we're able to get grants and that kind of thing for the underpasses, because I think it opens our city up. We don't want to segregate our city in any way. And I was a law enforcement officer for 30 years. I also was in the military for close to 30 years. And I believe in diversity, and I believe in treating people equally. And my family, there's been a Redpath on the police department since 1920. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, my uncles, my brothers, my cousins, my son's now a police detective over there. So, we live in a community of diverse folks, and we need to make sure that we live together and live in harmony. So.
Homelessness was another issue that had popped up a lot in the last couple of months with the debate over what to do with the library,
right.
The issue there. Walk us through, if you could, remind us what you favored and how do you think things are going now?
Well, under Mayor Davlin, they put together a situation where they had they had a building they set aside, and they were able to get lockers set up for the homeless and that kind of thing, and made it a kind of a better situation than what we got now. These folks that are staying here, that were staying here overnight, I think they were doing it for safety reasons, or that they were, you know, afraid to stay in the different areas. So, you know, the city, you know, this is a job for more professional people, for social worker type situations, than for us as politicians to be meddling. And I think we need to support them as much as we can, and we've tried to do that with the warming centers and trying to help them with helping hands and that type of thing. But the people that run the helping hands said, hey, it's not about beds. It's about, there's other issues here. It's maybe mental illness type of thing, or criminal situations where these folks don't want to come inside. And so, you know, we need to deal with those issues on top of just where they're going to stay. And hopefully, the mayor's done a pretty good job on trying to support, you know, the homeless folks here. And you know, we're trying to make sure everybody gets fed. We're trying to make sure everybody has a place if they want to stay. As a former police officer, I can tell you that a lot of those folks don't want to go inside. It's just they got some things going on that it just won't work for them. So, you know, we're going to continue to support and take care of the people we can take care of, and hopefully the social services folks will do their job, and we'll try to support that.
Are you supportive of the new HOP officer program?
Yes, I wasn't at first, and I'll tell you why. Because we spend a lot of money training police officers,
right?
And it's kind of like the MPOs that we have. That, you know, we spend a lot of money but basically they're doing like a social service job, you know, communications with the public. But I support this because they've trained this officer to be able to interact with the folks, and you know, maybe it takes some of the fear away from them if they had any kind of criminal problems that they might have. So yeah, I support that, and then we're going to see how it happens. It's more of an experiment right now on how it's going to work, but that was one of the things the mayor wanted to do, and the officer is pretty well qualified, and I think he's going to do a good job.
I want to swing back. You had mentioned, maybe even in your opening statement, about sewers, infrastructure, and maybe the need to spend $4 to $5 million a year kind of to maintain that, get that up to speed. Did you say that?
No. You talking about the sewers around the lake?
No, just sewers throughout the city.
I was talking about the sewers around the lake, but
oh, I see.
But yes, the sewer problem in Springfield is a major problem, and we've had talks with Greg Humphreys from the sanitary district about, hey, what would it take for you guys to take this over? 4 years ago, he said $30 million. We'll probably take it off your hands. Now it's probably $60 million because it's not getting any better. Mm-hmm. I think that a good use of our TIF money is to start those repairs, because some of those sewers have been around since Lincoln was here. I mean, seriously, I remember my earlier years on the city council where we went in and they're all brick, and we sprayed a liner on the inside of them, but they're falling apart, and eventually they're going to fall apart all the way, and they don't want to mess with them, and they're our problem right now. So yes, I think we should be spending some TIF money on sewers. We got a $33 million. When we reinstituted the TIF downtown, it's going to generate $33 million. I know a lot of that's, not a lot of that, but some of that's committed already. We ought to take a good chunk of that and start the repairs. And you got to start in the center and work your way out, because the outer sides of the cities are newer, and so most of those sewers are up to speed. But from the center of Springfield and the certain circle around the middle of the city needs repairs, and we should start that. I would support that.
Okay. We thank you for meeting with us today, and I invite you to give a brief closing statement as to why voters should choose you to give you another term on Election Day.
Well, I want to thank you for allowing me to come in and talk to you. Sometimes issues are tough to talk about because you just, you do your best to find out the answers to make the city better. I've worked very hard as the alderman. I meet with my constituents. I keep them informed. I do a good job communicating with them. I think I still have a lot to offer the city. I've been around for quite a long time and feel like I still contribute. So hopefully the people of Ward 1 think I'm doing a good job, and they'll return me to the city council.